What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikaPikaPaPa, and this video, I'm gonna tell you right off the bat, there's a lot of graphs, there's a lot of data, there is a whole lot of colors in this, but if you can make it through all of that, if you can make it to the end, I think there are some really cool takeaways from this, and we have put a ton of effort into this in the background here on the PikaPikaPaPa space. We have done a ton of data dives. It's awesome to see it all come together from this view. So I'm pumped to put it in front of you. Now, why am I doing this video? What spun all of this up? Well, in some of my previous videos, I've been talking about Sword and Shield booster boxes, and it was very interesting to me that you've got Lost Origin, you got Astral Radiance, and you got Brilliant Stars. And to be honest with you, all of those booster box prices are very, very close right now. So I've been thinking to myself, which is going to be the one to break out? Which is going to be the one to kind of lead the herd and take the flag and, just kind of be the one to stand out among the rest over time? And I've done some research in the past. I warehouse all kinds of information. I have booster box prices going all the way back to 2022. I keep all of that information, and I've tried to do some rear view mirror looks to understand what gives the best indication of a booster box potential for price growth. But what I haven't done is share it with you in as much detail as I am going to do today. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at all 12 booster boxes from the XY era, the Sun and Moon era, and the Sword and Shield era. We're going to look at where they started off in December of 2022. We're going to look at the top 20 singles cards from all 36 of those sets too, again, from December of 2022. We're going to come up with some questions. We're going to come up with some ideas. We're going to look at some of these different cards and prices and things kind of lumped together. And then we're going to see from December 2022 till now, which of these indicators gave us the strongest correlation to booster box growth. And I know that is a whole lot of words, but I promise you as we get through this, it's going to make a whole lot of sense if you don't quite understand what I'm talking about. But it is incredibly impactful. And when we get to the last slide, when you see the fact that we have taken 36 different booster boxes across 3 different eras, across all different starting off price points, across all different types of popularity, when you see the correlations that we come to at the very end, it is really cool and it's really exciting. And it's one of the things that gets me so fired up about keeping all this data here so I can provide you all with this type of information. So with that being said, I will say this, we do a ton of work on the channel. This was certainly one of the bigger projects that we've taken on. So if you've watched the channel a lot and you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, or if you're here and you get fired up about this stuff for the first time, hit that subscribe button. If you have questions or comments, drop them down below. And if you like what you see, give us a thumbs up. We got a small channel, and those 3 small things go a long, long way in helping us out, and I really appreciate it. So I thought the best thing to do before we get into the video itself was to talk about correlation, right? And because that is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be looking at if a subset of information correlates to booster box growth. So correlation is a term that returns to the strength of a relationship between 2 variables, right? You either have a strong or high correlation, which means the variables move well together, or you have a weak correlation, and we have some weak correlations that we'll be talking about, but we are looking for strong correlations. Now, everything is going to be expressed as a percentage. It will be a positive percentage. A higher positive percentage is a strong correlation, or you can have a negative correlation. It's from +1 to -1. So I went ahead and did this. Like anything up from 0.2 to 0.39 is a weak correlation. 0.4 to 0.59 is a moderate correlation, and anything above 0.6 is a strong correlation. Okay, so those are the things that we're going to be looking at. Now, as I told you, we started off with a ton of data. So this is it. These are all of the Sword and Shield sets from December of 2022. Now, I have the top 20 singles cards from each set in there, and then below that you just see a whole bunch of ridiculous information. I don't need you to pause the video unless you want to. You don't have to double click into that and get super small. Like, I promise you I'm going to blow it up here in just a second for you. But all this is intended to do is to show you the amount of data that we poured into this and where we started off from. Again, all of these prices are from December of 2022, and it is crazy to look at some of these prices, right? You look at, heck, look at Brilliant Stars. Look at the very top there. That Charizard V Alt Art from Brilliant Stars was at $195 in December of 2022, right? Then you look at the chase card from Silver Tempest. Silver Tempest was still relatively new. Heck, Lost Origin was relatively new. Heck, all those 4 sets were relatively new in December of 2022, right? That Lugia card was going for $227. The Moonbreon back then was going for $544, right? Like, the list goes on and on. It's really cool to look at this. And then when you look at their booster box prices, which is way down there, I mean, Silver Tempest was going for $103, right? Again, a very new set. Lost Origin was going for $107. Astral Radiance was going for $105. So it's really cool to step back as far as we did in this video to look at all of this. Now, I will say this. When I did this data dive, when I started off, I thought that the Sword and Shield numbers might be a little bit wonky simply because we did start off with so many new sets. We didn't have a lot of the information, wasn't vetted through all the way yet. Like a lot of these cards were still in the middle of the Pokemon pop and flop. But what was interesting to me was we still saw the same level of correlation. So what we did was we looked at a couple different things. So I looked at the chase card, okay? So I looked at the chase card of each and every set, and I ranked them from first to last. So you'll see there on that very first column in the graph there at the bottom, you see the word chase. And if you go left to right, that's where I ranked all of the chase cards by value. So Evolving Skies had the #1 most expensive chase card, right? Then Lost Origin had #2. Silver Tempest, that Lugia, came in at #3, right? Then you work your way all the way down, okay? All the way down to #12 in Rebel Clash. Rebel Clash had the lowest value chase card in there, okay? And then when you look at the average versus booster box, which is the very next one down. So I took an average of the top 20 cards, the average value of the top 20 cards, and I did it as a percentage versus the booster box price, okay? So very simple, right? So if the average of the top 20 cards was $100 and the booster box was $1,000, that is 10%, okay? So then what I did was I ranked it again. So you'll see that Chilling Reign actually had the highest average to booster box value. And spoiler alert, if you watch this channel way back then, Chilling Reign has almost always had the highest average to booster box value since we started doing that ratio, which was really interesting. Then you'll see Evolving Skies at #2. You'll see Lost Origin then was #3. Silver Tempest was #4 again, and all the way down. Then the middle 16 versus booster box was this random number, or this random view that I came up with many, many moons ago. And I said, okay, let's say we take the chase cards out, because I had said, listen, you need more than a chase card to drive the value of the set. So I said, pull out the top 2 of the top 20, pull out the bottom 2 of the top 20, and you're left with the middle 16, okay? So then you have the middle 16 versus booster box ratio there. And again, I did the same thing, left to right. All of them are stack ranked from 1 to 12. And then I thought, hey, why don't we do an average of the top 5 cards? So again, forget the 15 below that. We'll just look at the top 5. Are the top 5 enough to drive the value of a booster box in the long run? Then, believe it or not, I just did price. Like, does a cheap booster box lead to great long-term returns? If we know that booster boxes have a tendency to grow in value over time, maybe there's some significant or statistical advantage to starting off with a really low price. So I went ahead and I ranked all the cheapest booster boxes from December 22nd of 2022, right? So you look at it right there, the cheapest was Battle Styles back then. Third was Astral Radiance. Second was Silver Tempest, right? Fourth was Chilling Reign, you know? Absolutely crazy when you look at all of that. The most expensive booster boxes back there were actually Sword and Shield. You got Rebel Clash, and of course Evolving Skies was #1. But when you look at where the cheapness was, I mean, the cheapness was in a lot of those sets, but again, because they were still relatively new. So then what I did was I totaled everything. I went top to bottom. So for Silver Tempest right there, I said, okay, their chase was a 3, average versus booster box was a 4, middle 16 versus booster box was a 4, average top 5 was a 5, price was 2, and I added that up to 18, okay? So I thought that, like golf, the lowest score wins, because the lowest score indicates that out of all of these indicators, they were the best performer. So you'll see that I rank that there in the bright yellow, total rank right there. So Chilling Reign ranked #1. They had the lowest score coming in at 15. Evolving Skies, #2. You're starting to see some patterns for them, right? We all know Chilling Reign has done really well. We all know Evolving Skies did really well, right? Silver Tempest was in there too. They were tied at 18. They came in tied for 2nd place. Then you got Lost Origin at 4th, Fusion Strike at 5th. So we're starting to see some of this flush out a little bit. Then below that in the bright yellow, I did booster box growth. That is the actual growth of booster boxes from a percentage standpoint from December of 2022 till today. I just pulled the booster box price over the weekend, so that is the most updated. And you will see the booster box growth rank right there in fuchsia. So you will see that the biggest growth over from December of 2022 till now was Evolving Skies, right? The second biggest was Fusion Strike. The third biggest was Chilling Reign. The fourth biggest was Lost Origin, Astral Radiance, Battle Styles, Silver Tempest, and then we get into the others on the right. So what did I do? Well, I've got all this in Excel. You can run a correlation function. You can see how one data set correlates to the other. So that's what I did. So there up in the very top in that big bold box right there, I have the correlation for all of these different metrics that we came out with. So you'll see that the lowest correlation between booster box price growth was the price, was the starting price. So in Sword and Shield, there was absolutely very, very little correlation between the starting booster box price and how the box grew from December of 2022 till now. So the second lowest correlation was the chase card, okay? So again, 48 isn't a low correlation by any stretch of the imagination, but when you're comparing it to the other correlations are much, much stronger. So again, the second lowest correlation came from the biggest chase cards, which I thought was very interesting, and I'm fascinated to see if that trend continues through Sun and Moon and XY, and spoiler alert, it's going to be really cool to watch this the rest of the way. So again, then when things start to get bunched up here in Sword and Shield, so remember, take Sword and Shield with a little bit of a grain of salt. So then really the next couple are really, really strong correlation. So a strong correlation between that combined one, right, that total rank that I did right there, strong correlation between top 5, strong correlation between that middle 16, and the highest correlation from this data set came from the average of the top 20 cards versus booster box price. That was where we saw the biggest correlation between that metric right there and future booster box appreciation. So now I know I went through this one painstakingly slow, which was the intent to try and explain everything so you all could understand it. Now we're going to go through Sun and Moon, and we're going to go through XY, and we'll talk about it, but we're going to talk about it not with quite as much detail. So if you need to watch this section again, you need to understand it a little bit more, go for it. I know it's a ton of info, as I said, super data heavy, but I do think this is really cool because this is math, right? This takes the thoughts, the feelings, any kind of perception, any of that, takes all of it out of it. This is black and white, and that is what I love doing on this channel, is black and white research, and it doesn't get any blacker and whiter than this. So the next one right here, same thing, except I collapsed all of that stuff. These are from Sun and Moon, and what's really cool is if you look at the bottom 2 bars down there, those are the booster box prices. The ones that are in color are from December of 2022, and then the one that's kind of in that bluish shade down there, those are from just this weekend. And look at that. Look at Team Up. Team Up in December of 22 was $941 a booster box, and now it's at almost $2,400. That's crazy, and that's kind of got me thinking about Evolving Skies sitting at $700 a booster box. Like, even if it doesn't give the exact same growth, like even if it doesn't reach the same highs as Team Up did, Team Up has certainly proven that $900 for a relatively ultra-modern booster box certainly doesn't have to be the ceiling, seeing that one at $2,400. And again, there's a lot of strong growth over here. You look at Unified Minds, I mean, that was a $390 booster box, now it's at $682. Even, you know, Cosmic Eclipse, right? It started off at $545, and now it's at $885. So just left to right, we see a whole lot of really, really strong gains here. So what did I do? Exact same thing as Sword and Shield. So these are the exact same parameters ranked out, and you will see when it came to the chase card, that Charizard at Burning Shadows was #1. The Lovebirds card was actually #2 back then, behind that Zard from Burning Shadows, which was really cool. Then, of course, you've got the Ultra Prism set right there coming in at #3. You've got Celestial Storm coming in at #4. And then Lost Thunder, like, don't get me wrong, love me that Lugia Rainbow card, but man, coming in at #5, the #5 best chase card from Sun and Moon, man, that is absolutely crazy. And then, of course, we do the average versus booster box, middle 16 versus booster box, the top 5 Team Up took the crown for the top 5. Burning Shadows took #2, but again, that is all being driven by that Charizard. That's why I thought it would be really interesting to do this, you know, where you pull out the top 2 and pull out the bottom 2 and see where the correlation lies from there. So anyways, we went through that whole exercise, and down at the bottom, again, in that fuchsia box, you will see the booster box growth rank. So obviously, Team Up took the top crown, right? Up 152% since we did the look back in December of 2022. Coming in second place was Unified Minds at a 76% growth rate from December 2022 till now. Super impressive gains right there. Coming in at #3 was Ultra Prism. I don't know why I didn't think Ultra Prism had grown that much. I don't know why that one caught me off guard. #4 was Lost Thunder. Again, really interesting, but again, when you look at it, they started off with some relatively low booster box prices. Lost Thunder was #5 in terms of the lowest booster box price, so that was really interesting, okay? So then coming in at #5 was Cosmic Eclipse. Again, Cosmic Eclipse started off almost at, you know, $400 and something, and now it's at $800. So big growth there. So anyways, when we look at all of that, when we're trying to look at the correlations, again, the weakest correlation for Sun and Moon came with starting price. Matter of fact, there's a negative correlation there. So we can say that where the booster box price started had almost nothing to do with how the booster box would grow in the future. The second weakest correlation, again, was the chase card. This was something that was really interesting to me. I don't know why I thought the chase card would have a higher impact on the overall booster box growth, but again, that doesn't seem to be the case. Now, here's where we start to see these correlations kind of blow up a little bit versus what we saw in Sword and Shield, where the next 4 were really, really tightly clasped, okay? So now coming in at #3 right there, you've got the correlation for the average versus booster box. Remember, that's the average of the top 20 cards versus booster box. That was the third strongest correlation. The second strongest one was the combination, so where we added up like the golf score, right? We added up where all of these different indicators were, we gave them a total score, and that was the second strongest one. But the #1, the strongest one, was PikaPikaPapa's stupid middle 16 versus booster box that I came up with literally in one of my very first videos that I ever did here in the Pokemon space. So again, really interesting to see that, taking out the top 2 of the top 20, taking out the bottom 2 of the top 20, sticking with those middle 16. I mean, that is your strongest correlation here in the Sun and Moon space. Now again, we're going to look at XY, and I am so pumped to look at XY because this just adds another degree of age, right? We're looking at, this is going to be number 36. These are going to be 36 total sets that we've looked at now, again, across 3 different eras, across all different types of collecting landscapes and interest and drive, and it is absolutely fascinating. Look at how low some of these prices were from the XY era back in December of 2022. I mean, some of these booster boxes are absolutely just ridiculously low. Roaring Skies at $470, Primal Clash at $440. You know, this is just crazy how low these were considering the age. And Roaring Skies, again, I'm a big fan of it. I think there's some awesome cards in Roaring Skies. So fascinating to look at that. And then when you look at some of these singles card prices too, I mean, Phantom Forces has some absolute studs there at the very top, but still the chase card was $152 and that number 2 card was $61.84. Phantom Forces is very much a Gengar set, so I love Phantom Forces. Then you get to Flash Fire, right? We have some big bad Charizards up there. The blue secret rare Charizard at $229. So again, just some really, really cool sets with some really strong cards. But back in December of 2022, they were really flying under the radar. So when we get into the meat and potatoes of all of that, this is what we saw. And again, the correlations are absolutely fascinating. Now, the biggest booster box growth actually came from Phantom Forces, which is interesting because Phantom Forces had a really, really high price to begin with. Then our second biggest booster box growth actually came from XY Base. And then third came from Fates Collide. Love me some Fates Collide, right? And then you've got Roaring Skies coming in there at number 5. You got Steam Siege coming in at number 4. Now, Steam Siege was a product that I bought at $200 a while ago simply because I was like, I don't care if this booster box is full of crud. It is so old, it's Pokemon, it's sealed, it's going to go up in value. So Steam Siege just goes to show you that you can sometimes just do that, right? But now when we break it out and we look at the actual correlations, again, very fascinating stuff. So the correlation of the top 5 came in at last place. Basically here for the XY era, correlation of the top 5 was just kind of uncorrelated, is about as uncorrelated as you can get. And again, coming in at second to last place was the chase card. Over 3 generations, over 36 different sets from December of 2022 all the way to now. You're talking about what? I don't know. You're talking about 19 months. Guess what? It has shown that correlation between chase card and booster box growth just simply isn't there, at least for this period of time, right? So then coming in at number 4 in the terms of strength of correlation was the combination thing. Coming in and tied at number 2 was the correlation of average versus booster box and that middle 16 versus booster box. And then for whatever reason, the number 1 correlation between booster box price growth over time for the XY era was price. And for me, this might be something that says, hey, listen, maybe the older sets, these older sets that are overlooked, just like that example that I shared about Steam Siege, how I bought the booster box because in my mind, I didn't care that it was crap. All I thought to myself was it is so old, it is sealed product, it is going to continue to diminish in population over time. Like, I'm just going to pick it up. That might be something that when we're starting to look at the older sets, maybe that starts playing a bigger thing. So really interesting to see that that was the number 1. Now, we're going to combine all of them. We're going to look at all 36 of these. We're going to look at all of them. We're going to average them out. And guess who the winner was? That middle 16 versus booster box price. Now, you are splitting hairs between middle 16 versus booster box and average versus booster box, but the reality is those top 20 cards have a much bigger impact on the overall booster box growth than anything else, because when you get out of the 1 and the 2 ranking, you get down to the 3, I mean, you've got not a significant drop, but you've got enough points of depreciation to show that the strongest thing is going to be that correlated between the average and the booster box price. Now, what was really interesting to me was the fact that the chase card played such little value or had such little of an impact in overall booster box growth over time. That was a shocker to me, to be honest with you. Now, the correlation in price, I didn't expect that to be really strong, but I do think that there's something to be said that there is more of a stronger correlation between that the further back you go. The older sets you get, the cheaper the booster box, the stronger the correlation is between booster box growth in the future. I think that is a big takeaway, and that is not something that I'm taking lightly. I do think that is a big learning out of all of this. But again, so if you want to understand, at least for these 36 sets, at least over the last 19 months, at least starting from December of 2022 until now, the strongest correlation between booster box growth and any metric is going to be between that average or that middle 16. That middle 16 is what I'm going to stick with because for whatever reason, that's what I started with. So I'm going to stick with that, and it won just by a hair. So Again, super data heavy video, and I can slice and dice this. I can look at this any which way you want. So if you have some great suggestions, drop them in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this type of content, hit that thumbs up button. And if you want more, we do fun stuff like this all the time on the PikaPikaPaPa channel. So hit that subscribe button. I hope you guys really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I will talk to you later. Have a good one, everybody. See you. Bye.